Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Javi Honor, and I would like to welcome you to this session. Pride Goes Digital at Accenture. All information in this document is proprietary and cannot be used without permission. This is the time when I introduce myself. My name is Javier Leonor, as I said before. I'm Spanish. I live in Amsterdam for a few years. I've been working 20 years in consulting. After the last 2 years, I joined the HR Global Inclusion and Diversity team at Accenture. So basically, I'm taking care of all the LGBTQ programs that we run globally. On a personal note, I like musicals, I like meeting new people, I love flying, and by that I mean being on a plane. I am a foodie, I like to eat, and I'm also gay. And this is the part where I tell you about Accenture. We are a global company, we provide IT and consultancy services globally, and we have more than 500,000 employees. Before we go into how our journey went digital, I would like to maybe cover a little bit how our LGBTQ journey began. Where did it all started and how did we get where we are today? In this slide, you can see our IND journey where we started in 1995. There are many things in the slide that I could highlight, but I will just go with one. In 2003, we started our first LGBT chapters, and those actually happened in the US, in the UK, and in Australia. In this second slide, you can see a few things as well that I highlighted. I will only mention one, as the slide is really busy and you can probably see it yourself. In 2016, we decided to rebrand our LGBT network. It was not longer covering all the letters in the rainbow family, so we rebranded it to Pride at Accenture. We want to make sure that everyone feels welcome wherever that letter is. And with that, we can now move into the digital part of Pride. What have we done this year to make sure that we could still be together and celebrate who we are? And if Ashlocal was further together, we wanted to make sure that we also would involve everyone that can play a role in inclusion and diversity. So you see on the screen as well who were involved in making sure that this would all be a reality. Not only the global inclusion and diversity team, where I'm part of, but also the country or the market IND lead. So basically, in every country, we have an inclusion and diversity person that takes care of all the programs we have, whether that is for gender, for ethnicity, for disabilities, or for LGBTQ. So that person was involved in making the plans. We also talked to the local networks, basically the ERGs, employees resource groups, and we involved them as well to make sure that they were aware of all the activities that they could plan and share with others. And all of that while making sure that we kept, aligned with our global pride strategy. And here we have it. We had an idea, we made a plan, we have a team, and we can do all that further together. So we started with a few things, and the first thing we actually took care is the events, things that would allow people to come together, share knowledge, and get connected between different countries, between different ERGs. And in this slide, you have the calendar that we created for June. As you know, we had a season between May and September, October, and we made a calendar per month, and we highlighted a few things that we want to share with everyone. In this June calendar, you can see a few things. On Tuesdays, we would have, for example, content-driven events, so events in which we hope people to share knowledge, to get knowledge, to learn experiences, to share with each other about certain topics. On Thursdays and Fridays, we have a mix of basically some events that were actually fun, some events that were actually serious in terms of content, and also some external activities as well, like conferences that we were supposed to attend. I'll start highlighting a few of the events here. You have, for example, the first one, Pride Across Cultures. That was an event that was made from Australia, and actually it highlighted a few Australian colleagues that had a different background. For example, someone was from the Philippines, someone was from India, someone was from Malaysia, and they actually told their stories about coming out and sharing, their heritage and their culture, but also being Australian and also being LGBTQ. And all of that together with different, learnings and different thoughts about how can we integrate, for example, religion and being LGBTQ. The second one, Thriving Mind for Pride, is actually an event that we had about mental health. We have a a priority this year's, and since a few years, about mental health at Accenture. We want to make sure that our employees, are have enough mental well-being so that they can, be themselves and also perform as they at their best. So in this case, we actually hosted a session about LGBTQ people and mental health for LGBTQ. So we highlighted a few of the things, a few of the risks, a few of the challenges that LGBTQ people may have in terms of their mental health. Another one that we had as well was actually Transgender 102. We have been having transgender awareness and education sessions for years, but this was the next level actually. It was given by one of our most senior transgender colleagues, and she actually shared, some of the things that go beyond the obvious and beyond the things that most of us could know. So it was a very nice event to get to know a bit more deeper about the community at Accenture. A few of the events that I want to highlight, being queer, for example, we talk about the meaning of being queer through the years. It's not the same being queer in the 60s or in the 70s that it is being now. So actually, we compare, the society back then and the society now. And I was really interested to see how different ages and different, experiences between colleagues could be shared and could be actually, linked together. We also had some fun events. You see another one there, a pub quiz that we had about, LGBTQ information, LGBTQ data, lots of RuPaul, lots of Eurovision for those in Europe, so lots of questions that people could use to actually relax and connect without an agenda. Also on Fridays, you see a few things there. For example, the East meets West conference. That was a conference that normally is hosted in Vienna, in Austria, and people could attend. For the first time, it was actually free of charge. It was online, so people could actually attend from anywhere in the world. We had people from Norway attending. We had people from South America attending. So depending on the session, they could just click on and actually get to know and participate in different sessions. That was the first time that it was accessible for everyone. So it's a great opportunity to hear about other people and what they're doing. We also had some fun events. You see there comedy as well, comedy club. We had a colleague in Boston, James. He's transgender and he's very funny and he makes stand-up comedy, sorry. And he's very, very witty in the way he explains things, and he creates awareness and educates us all with humor, which is really powerful in this case. So we had a good laugh and we had a good learning as well on the session about comedy. And we also had a drag queen online bingo, which is actually something that was hosted in the Netherlands, and lots of people from different countries could join. So we had people from Singapore, from Malaysia, from India, from South Africa, from all over Europe. And that's kind of a nice thing, when an event is online and it's actually free of charge, anyone can attend as long as they have an internet connection and some time. And that's actually what we had during the pandemic. We all had a bit of time, and we also had an internet connection on a laptop. So we were actually willing to connect with others and try to see if we could actually go outside of our house without actually leaving the house. And to close our learning sessions for June, actually, we wanted to close the session with a special guest, and we invited our CEO, Julie Sweet. You see that on the screen. And she actually joined us, and she spent a good hour with us hearing what we are doing around the world, where people are feeling, what are the things that we can do better, what are the things that we are already doing very well. And it was actually very, very well received, because she was listening to everything that everyone was saying. She was listening to people in Russia, to people in Singapore, to people in France, to people in Atlanta, to people complaining about, for example, Black Lives Matter. It was really, really an eye-opening for all of us to see how human we all are when we get together. So it was an honor and a privilege to actually have her on the last call for June. And I think it's actually the first time that our CEO has attended one of these meetings with us. Really, really highlight of the year for us. And next to having a CEO, and next to having serious learnings and making sure that we have knowledge sharing and best practices sharing, we also wanted to relax and enjoy some time. So you see some of the events here again, the drag queen bingo that we had, also some dance events that you see here hosted from DC, from Washington DC to the world. Basically, anyone could just join. It's actually very interesting to see how all these events were very popular in terms of not only in the region where they were, but also outside, that country or outside that continent. It was a very good time. We tried to plan it in a day that actually was Thursday or maybe Friday, so that people could have been more, in a bit of the weekend mood. And actually was one of the biggest successes that we had. Almost everyone joined all these events, and they were all very well received. And now let's move into social media. if it's not on Twitter, if it's not on Facebook, if it's not on Instagram, it actually doesn't happen. So we had to make sure that we had some visibility there as well. And here you see what we did for Instagram and for Facebook. You can see there, we actually took the Instagram account of Accenture over. I think every company has, accounts on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. We were allowed to take it over for a week, and we were publishing LGBTQ stories from our employees every so many hours. I think it's every 8 hours or something like that. So you see, there would be a story coming every so many hours, and at the end of the week, actually, the whole Instagram story, so Instagram, screen or how you call it, it's actually an LGBTQ screen. It was really moving. It was really personal. It was really nice to get to know other people. It was really well received by colleagues from the LGBTQ community, but also from the other ERGs. And actually, it got many reactions from outside Accenture. So it was a very, very well perceived, and I think something we want to keep doing in the coming years. It was really nice to showcase our employees and to allow them to tell their story and to reconnect with themselves and to reconnect with their beginnings as an LGBT person. Yeah. So the stories of these 20 people that we actually publish in Instagram and Facebook are actually stories of people who could be role models for anyone within Accenture. And Accenture is a digital company. We make lots of apps and digital tools for our clients. So it was only logical that we would have to make an app for this season, for the Pride season. The idea started in Chile. Some colleagues from there, they came up with the idea. Then we worked with a few teams in Brazil and in San Francisco and in Mexico, and also with the Global IND team. And we created an app to collect steps from people marching. So if you go for a walk, if you go to do some sports, if you go to take your kids to the school, if you go to do something that you want to do and you're moving around, you can actually activate your step counter, and the steps will be kept. And at the end of that day, of that journey, of that week, you can donate or give your steps for a certain cause. The cause were actually, LGBTQ rights in Europe, in Africa, in the US, in Asia, in Australia, and also you could also fight for anti-racism as well. We wanted to also take with us intersectionality, add a bit of Black Lives Matter support, and ensure that we would actually cater for both. So this is actually one of our biggest successes, and as you can see on the screen, in a few months, or I think 2 or 3 months, we already had 14 million steps march already. So I really encourage you to actually go to the app and start using it. You can see it. We work together with the client. The client is the Golden State Warriors sport team in San Francisco, and the app is within their app. So actually, we work within technology, client, business, HR. We actually were a very, very multidisciplinary team to ensure that we could work together and get this done. And we created also some tools for Instagram and for Facebook. We wanted to make sure that people would be engaged in the conversation. So we created these filters that you can see there with the further together slogan, and also with the LGBTQ flag. And we also created some augmented reality games and filters for Instagram. So people could show, if they're an ally, for example, they could actually wear the lanyard with the logo, the rainbow logo from Accenture as well. We also created a game in which you have to guess the LGBTQ flag that you have on your head. So it was actually well perceived, lots of interaction with users, and actually something that I think it was really well received by the community. And talking about role models, as we did a few moments ago, I think we have to highlight that we want to keep, showcasing and promoting our role models within the company and also outside the company. So here you have, for example, a blog that we did with 5 of our top lesbian women, I would say, 5 fantastic colleagues that we have, and they share their stories and the reasons for being who they are and the struggles they have had to come to terms with themselves. And actually, that's really nice, because when they share their story, that encourages others to also be more out there and be visible in the community. In this case, the women were actually from Germany, the Netherlands, Italy, Brazil, and India. So a little bit of all over the place to make sure that we are diverse in that part as well. For other special days, like for example, Idaho, we had some blog about people from South Africa, and also from Seattle as well, to make sure that we cover a bit of everything within our community. So every time we have an opportunity, there's a special date like coming out date, or like for example, Idaho, or any day that has a special observance for LGBTQ people, we want to make sure that we communicate something internally and externally. And it's not only about communication. Sometimes you also have to give data points. You have to make sure that you give some interesting reports, interesting research that we are doing with partners or maybe ourselves, to ensure that we keep advancing the data points as well in terms of LGBTQ inclusion. This is the first piece of research that we did this year. We did it with Open for Business. Open for Business is an organization that takes care and researches about the economic business case of being LGBTQ inclusive. So they try to analyze, the correlation between cities that are inclusive and their economy. And in the research that it was released first in 2018, this is the updated version of 2020. You can see the top cities, which are the ones that we all think are very inclusive, and you see how well they are positioned in their economic power. So I think that is very interesting for us to see, again, not looking at the human side of the inclusion for LGBTQ people, but also the economic side. And this is a very good report in case you want to analyze why it makes sense to be LGBT inclusive from an economic perspective. The report is available at the Open for Business website, so I encourage everyone to go and have a look and find your city. And this is the second report that we launched this year. This is the research that Accenture does every year. It's called Getting to Equal, and this is the Pride chapter. So we focus on Pride. We interviewed about 20,000 people, I think, not in Accenture, but also outside Accenture. So basically, it's a mix of companies, and also in 22 countries, if I'm not mistaken. So, and then we asked them a few questions about their career, about their progression, and then we make some reports and some analysis that you can see in the report. The title of it is Visible Growth and Invisible Fears. That is basically we come from far. We have been advancing, since 50 years. Since Stonewall, we are actually building blocks to get to a more equal world for LGBTQ people. But we still have many bricks to find and many walls to tear down. So that's why the invisible fears is also in the title. For example, you can see there on the screen that 50%, 57% of the employees believe that their sexual orientation or gender identity has slowed their progress at work. So basically, two-thirds, a little bit less than two-thirds of employees think that being LGBTQ was not good for their career. That is a very serious, statement and data that we found out. So I encourage everyone to actually go to the Accenture webpage and find the report and have a look, because you can have very interesting conversations when you look at the data for your country or the data for your industry if you want. So again, go to the report, and if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. We'll be happy to clarify anything that we have done. So right when we were actually beginning our Pride journey this year, our Pride season, we actually heard and were horrified with the events that happened in Minneapolis with George Floyd. So I think we had to actually pivot and change our message to make sure that we were being inclusive of everyone and being mindful of the situation everywhere. So we changed our message to combine both a support for Pride and support for equality and standing together against racism. So I think you can hear some of the things that we did. We created communications for people to use. We created new frames for people to use in their profiles, so people could actually express their support for Pride, but also their support for Black Lives Matter, for example. Again, it was a bit of an example of how we had to be quick and agile to adapt to a situation that was changing on a daily basis. And as well, again, as mentioned, we are a digital company, so we had to create some digital resources for our employees to use and for everyone to show their support for Pride. Here you have a few of the tools that we created. For example, the one that says visibility is basically an animated video that people can put, in their Facebook profile, in their website. Is very, shareable and use it, and is very, really Accenture-like. So basically, anyone can put it in their website, any country, any ARG, any network, to use it and make sure that it's showing the support for us as a Rainbow family. We also see there underneath that we created some messages for Pride. So we created a few emails that were ready, ready made, and people could just copy, paste them, and send them in their countries, or maybe translate them if they wanted the local language. But they were talking about generic things about Pride, some facts about Pride, and for example, in this one here, you see the meaning of the rainbow flag. I don't think that everyone knows about it. So for our allies, for people, in certain countries, it's really useful to remind these things to everyone. Okay. Another thing that you see there is the further together background that we created. We use Microsoft Teams at Accenture, and we all have lots of calls, as I think we all do. So it was nice to be able to provide everyone with a customized background for them. So there was one for each of the countries. So I got the one from the Netherlands, but everyone had different one, and you could actually show that you are showing your support for Pride, or that you're a member of the Pride family, what you prefer, by showing that in your background. And next to that, we also, as mentioned already, we created some filters and some things that we could use to enhance your people profile within Accenture. And we could not forget about Allies. Allies is actually one of the most important programs we have at Accenture. We have now around 125,000 allies, so basically 1 out of 4 employees is an ally, LGBT ally I'm talking about. And they're really important for us because they're the ambassadors for our message. So basically, we would not be as far as we are in terms of our inclusion culture if we were not having so many allies. So we created a new toolkit with new things to discuss and new ways of doing it. You see there on the screen 5 steps to becoming a super ally, for example. Again, being an ally doesn't mean that you know everything or you have every single knowledge about the LGBTQ family. It could be that you just want to know more and you're curious about more, and that would be step 1 in being an ally. Step 5 would be that you're marching with us in the pride parades in different cities when they are possible, to be honest. So basically, the idea is to have these guides so that people would have an excuse to talk to the allies again. And then you can plan an ally lunch or an ally breakfast or a brown bag session in which people can talk about a few things about what it means for them to be an ally. So again, an excuse to communicate with allies to make sure that we show them how important they are for us. And sometimes you just want to see something for yourself. You want to have a small training so that you can learn a few topics. So we created these videos as well, short videos, as you can see, half a minute or maybe a minute or 2 minutes, really short, in which LGBTQ people explain something about themselves. You see the second one there, talking about LGBTQ, LGBTQI, LGBTQ plus. I think some of the people that may not belong to the family as part of the family, they feel maybe that it's a bit of difficult to follow. So we wanted to make sure that we would train them, we would kind of educate them on the different terms. You see them there on the screen. So these videos can be used for example, an email that you want to send to someone, or maybe you want just to have a conversation with allies, or you want to maybe discuss with your community what is the right term, LGBTQ, LGBTQI, LGBTQ plus, and all those things basically are tools that enable the conversation that will get people together, so that the topic is actually being discussed and that we are getting our knowledge further than we have today. And this is the only non-digital part of the presentation. Again, you see there are some clothes and some jumpers, baseball cap, and a bottle of water. I think what we wanted to make sure is as people are working from home and they're having video conferencing with everyone, maybe they can also wear something that would actually give them a sense of pride or a sense of belonging, or that would be recognizable for others as well in terms of that. So we always have the lanyards, but the lanyards are usually used with the badge. And now we're not going to the office, so it's actually not very used at the moment. But wearing a cap or wearing one of these jumpers with the rainbow logo of Accenture immediately catches your eyes, and it lets you know that actually I'm an ally or I'm part of the LGBTQ family. So it's something very easy and totally not digital, but it can be used, in the digital communication to make sure that people recognize and accept, the fact that we're all visible, even if we're at home. And we're getting to the end of the presentation. So this is basically the results of the Pride season that we had this year. I will go through a few of the details here, not all of them. If I cover 1, 2, and 3, and in one sentence, in one go, we had more than 600 events, local, global, fun, learnings, with leadership, small groups. So we have so many events, and the nice thing about the events is actually all of them were actually accessible for everyone. Everyone could actually just click and access an event as long as they knew that was happening. So the job was actually to communicate all these events and to make sure that people knew that these were happening. Okay. Also, we also engage with countries that we'd never engaged before. So basically, Russia was present in a couple of the meetings. We have people from Malaysia as well joining a few of the sessions. We have people from Singapore joining sessions from North America, which is, in terms of time zone, is maybe not the easiest thing to do. So for the first time, actually, we had engagement from countries or cities that were not engaged before. And also, the number 3 as well, we created a community feeling of being a global company. So for the first time, we actually had people attending events of each other, and we created a bit of a network, to be honest, and people start knowing each other now. So I think that is really interesting to see how that will continue, if people will still be joining each other's events or communicating the events with each other. So it was really interesting for us to see how this became a global family. Point number 4, we grew our allies. So we, as mentioned already, we had I think about 115,000 allies, and we added 10,000 more in this season. So it's really nice to see that actually the interest for being an ally grew during this season, and that actually we are reaching the numbers that we have now, which is really exceptional. I think really good. Point number 5 is really important. Also, not it was not an LGBTQ effort. It was not just the ESG planning things and doing things. It was everyone. It was a marketing team. It was the HR team. It was the I&D team. It was the ERG. It was the business. Really, we managed to make sure that we involve everyone, and it felt like we were all in this together. Again, further together. And the nice thing as well is that we also share some of the best practices. So what was working in Singapore was actually copy paste in Tokyo, and the ones from Sydney teach something to South Africa. So it's really good to see how people can share the knowledge and to learn that we're all doing the same thing and trying to get to the same endpoint, and we can actually help each other to make the, the way easier for all of us. Hello, this is me again. We have reached out the end of the presentation. I hope it was useful. This is the part in which you usually would actually ask me questions, and we will just get into a dialogue about this or that. As this is a recorded session, that's not possible, but I look forward to getting your questions. So my email address will be showing up in a moment here on the screen. So with that, thank you for listening and enjoy the conference.